What's up? What's up? What's up, family? Welcome back to Let Me Talk to You, Son, episode 4. I got my great friend, my brother, Brad Kennan.
Kennan, yeah, you should know me. I mean, I'm your brother, right? So we've known each other for a minute.
Yeah, we've been about
I don't know. It's been at least 10 years, probably
10.
Been longer than that. Ben's been gone for 6.
10.
So.
Yeah, so it's been about
12.
At least 12 to 15
14 years. Yeah. That's been a long time. I guess I met you when I was in the car business. I was in that for at least 10 years. I was in that for 11. I've been out of that for at least 6 or 7. So it's been a minute, man. It just seems like time flies when you get older, you know.
Say that for real. So this my brother Brad.
Right.
Been knowing each other for 15 years, close to 15 years.
Yep.
And since you kicked it off, man, won't you give the details of how we met?
Okay, so I had a car lot. Mike came in one day and he's like, man, I'm looking for this car. And I got him a car. I think it was a Tahoe, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Tahoe. Yukon Denali.
It was a Yukon Denali. Yep. And I remember being in the car business, financing. He's like, man, I'm a barber. I'm like, okay, so you don't get W-2s, you get paid cash. So I got to figure that out. So somehow we figured that out.
To all the barbers out there.
Right. So, and you were my customer for years and years, and we just became friends. And I remember, I think we played ball together sometimes when I was younger. We played some basketball together. I remember you took my son down to the Illinois Ohio State game in the pouring rain. You gave us a set of tickets and like, hey man, I got this set of tickets for my buddy. And, I said, well, okay, me and my son will go.
Yeah.
And it ended up your friend wanted you to go.
Right.
Because he was being honored at halftime.
That's right.
Which you never told me that.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm like, you just go, I'm good. Cause I remember we had a party we were having at the house that night. I'm like, I'll stay home with my wife and help her. And you took my son. My son was probably maybe a freshman or sophomore in high school.
Yeah, he was
my youngest son.
Yeah.
And he was shy and didn't want to go, and it was out of his comfort zone. But you went, took him, and he had a great time, and he remembers that. Yeah. So, and I remember you guys going because you guys had to get ponchos. I remember it was pouring rain.
It was pouring down raining.
Man. So after that, like I said, we just, I got out of the car business. Things move, life goes on. And the last time, I've seen you here in the recent, we try to get together there once in a while to talk. For sure. Have dinner, have lunch, whatever that is.
Yep.
But it is what it is. So, you asked me to be on. I got I was a father of two boys. So, we'll see how that,
Well, you've been doing a great job, honestly, man. You've been a great friend all these years. Someone I can always reach out to and confide in, regardless of what it is, get different perspectives on what I may be challenged in, or just reaching out just to say hello. I love you, man. Appreciate you.
I try to give, I'm going to be honest. If somebody asks me a question, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you the God's honest truth.
Well, that's how I got the vehicle, because me being honest and you being honest, you found a way to get that yes for me. And you were in position of power to make those type of decisions, man. And I did it. I didn't take that lightly, because, seeing that you went out your way to help me and my family at the time, because that's how I looked at it. And it was, and it still is to the day. But I was like, man, this is a great guy, so why not show my gratitude and appreciation in the way I could. Yeah. And then I give some shoes or something like that too?
Yeah, I remember. So your friend played in the NBA.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I had the same size feet that he did.
Yes. Yeah.
I still have those shoes.
Wow.
So you brought me a pair of shoes out of his closet, brand new pair of Nikes that were his signature shoes that he wore in the NBA.
Yep.
You brought me a pair. And I was the only dude ever playing in those at the rec center. I'll tell you that right now. And I remember you brought my son, you brought him a pair of game-worn shoes from the playoffs when he was in the playoffs.
Yes, against the Detroit Pistons.
Yes. I still have those shoes.
I think he dropped like 36 that game too.
Right. And
I think that was the only game they won.
Well, I got the shoes, and I remember you brought me a jersey or a warm up or something else. And
I think it was a jersey.
Yeah. My son had that too, hanging on his wall for quite a long time.
Wow. So and you were building a house.
Yeah.
You was what, 3 or 4 acres? How many acres were you?
We had 8 acres out there.
How many? 8.
Gee
whiz. I remember going down the driveway, like going down the country mile. I'm like,
right.
This dude.
Well,
and the house is, was just, like, and you and your father?
Me and my father built that house.
Wow. See?
So my grandfather was a union carpenter forever and ever and ever.
Wow.
So construction, that was life. You know what I mean? That's back then, that was, you're in the trades. He was in the trades. He built all kinds of stuff. So my dad learned from him. So my dad ended up retiring from the HVAC. So he was a commercial HVAC. Yes. He was a tin knocker.
Oh, okay.
So basically, we did commercial buildings. He did a lot of buildings downtown.
Man.
Did all the heating and air conditioning for him through the union. He ran a shop for a couple big companies here in town. So growing up, we had a farm. My dad's a union guy. My mom stays home. We had
so you a horse farm. Okay,
yeah, we had a horse farm. So we had a boarding stable. So there was we were comfortable. We weren't rich. We weren't poor. We were comfortable. There was nothing that we didn't kind of get that we wanted eventually.
Okay.
So, but when you do that. Dad has to fix a lot of stuff.
Oh, okay. So
because kids break a lot of things kids break.
Right.
So I broke a lot of stuff growing up. Something was always broke. So my dad's always fixing that. And, just growing up, I worked with him when I was in high school at his, doing as-built drawings for, in fact, the prison down on 104.
Wow.
I did a set of drawings for that when I was in high school.
Y'all's footprints is all throughout downtown.
Yeah, it is. He did a lot of work downtown. So I remember we did like the library. I came down here, did work for that. So I always worked, for my dad. And so I thought, well, gosh, I want to be an engineer.
So it was very important for your father to pass down the principles of hard work.
Absolutely.
Wow.
My dad and my mom both.
Wow.
Because my dad got up every day at 6 o'clock or 6:20. And so it was a 7 to 3:30 job most of the time. He's always home at 4 o'clock. When he would walk in the door, my mom would have dinner ready. We'd sit down as a family. We'd eat dinner. My mom was from the South, so she cooked every single day. Man. Like I didn't even know going out to eat until I was in high school. Man, I mean, really,
that's back then. I would say those were just household principles, regardless of the race, regardless of culture.
Absolutely.
Like what? How did we steer away from that? Was it just a changing of the times? Is it
people get lazy?
The cultivating of the household? Or you say people get lazy?
People get lazy.
Well, I mean, society makes it very convenient for you to,
and because mom and dad now work 2 jobs. So everybody wants to keep up with the Joneses.
Wow.
Everybody, that house that used to be $50,000 or $15,000 is, $250,000 now.
Yeah.
The wages haven't escalated to that. You got people that have been told their entire lives, go to the trades or don't go to trades, go to college, go to college.
See?
So now
trades back then was very important.
Right. Like and that was very important.
Like a barter system somewhat in a sense.
And so when you got into the trades, you had a good job because you were a carpenter, you were an iron worker, you were an electrician, you were a plumber. You had work every day. If you wanted a job, you call the hall and you get work.
Wow.
So my dad, he did have several jobs when I was growing up, but they were all in the union. He all did the same thing. And,
so within the community or body of work that he was already skilled in.
Oh, absolutely. So you all know the same guys,
Right.
When he would if he changed jobs, I remember he'd have guys just come to that company with him.
Wow.
Because that's what people do.
Man. The loyalty back then as well.
Yeah. And, back then too, you had companies come and go in the business.
Right. That's what I'm about to say. The presidents of those companies, the CEOs of those companies kind of cherished the same values and morals.
Yeah. A lot of them were,
because unions was very big back then. I don't even think the word union
It's not important today.
Right.
I think back then it was. And I mean, my dad's 80. So he retired when he was 55 from his first retirement. And he went and became a bus driver because he didn't like being at home. And,
So how did that impact you on being like a father and you seeing that work ethic? It was just like second nature for you to just.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, when things break, he would fix them. And then as things got older and I broke them, and if I couldn't fix them, it was dad. Right. And it's still that today. I mean, this past weekend, my son has a 12-foot by 40-foot long deck on the back of his house.
Wow.
And it goes, and my son wants to cover it.
Wow.
So
that
what's
sounds
he do?
Amazing.
What's he do? He calls grandpa.
Yep.
Hey, grandpa, what are you doing on Saturday?
Okay.
Hey, dad, what are you doing on Saturday?
Yeah.
So me and my son and, my dad's 80 years old, man. He's cutting, handing us wood.
I love it.
Making sure the design's right and it's going to be structurally sound and it's going to be built right.
That's beautiful.
So, I'm not only passing that down to my son, but my dad is.
That's wonderful.
My son calls my dad every day.
Man, that's beautiful.
If it's 4:30 and generally my son hasn't called my dad, he's calling my son asking what's wrong.
That's beautiful.
Because he calls him literally every day on his way home.
Man, the bond there is,
right.
To me, that's generational wealth.
It is.
To me. I know we kind of, generational wealth nowadays is thrown around like, you got to have these billions and millions of dollars. No. I believe generational wealth is a mindset.
I believe so
a mindset
too.
Of what we're talking about now, right. Passing down those people skills, that bond, that loyalty, showing the example of how to, man, you got to help me, Brad, because.
Well, I mean, even now, my grandkids,
right,
every week they go to my parents.
Man,
so they're with great grandma and grandpa one day a week. Okay. My mom still takes care of horses, still mows grass, still has a garden. They do all that stuff.
This is amazing.
So those kids are learning from them. They have to get out in the garden and help.
Man.
They have to help with the horses. Man. They have to feed the horses.
Man.
So that you're passing down values and a work ethic. And honestly, at one point, I've read articles about the Rockefellers, putting kids in schools because they're going to learn how to, they're going to learn how to be a tradesman for Ford. That's what they want, people that listen. But as time goes on and they learn, they can use that work ethic for anything. That applies to everything. That applies to life.
Yes, it
does. That applies to a problem.
Yes, it does.
That applies to something that.
Yeah, check it. It's your parking.
Yeah.
Okay.
It says I got 5 minutes.
Okay.
So as we, move forward in life, the kids that don't get that, hopefully my grandkids are going to have a step above.
I see what you're saying.
And, for the kids that did not get that and had that knowledge and that work ethic passed down, they're going to be at a disadvantage. Well, I believe so.
Well, we see that.
We see it.
We see that now. Some of the principles that you're saying now, like rather it's good or bad, those principles are in operation.
Right.
So in some of the more low income communities, like you see the principle in operation, but you're passing down the gangster mentality. You're passing down the hustler mentality. You're passing down the violent mentality. So the same principles in the sense of the principle of it being passed down is in operation. You know what I mean? But it's like the principles that the way that the principles and the aspects that you guys are operating in, you're operating in the generational wealth of passing down the skill set, mindset, and the hard work ethic. And I think some of that's still like, because in the communities I grew up in, you hustle all night. That's hard work.
Right.
You know what I mean? You got the mindset to put in the hours.
Right.
It's it's how we're doing it. It's a negative way. It's in the sense of killing and poisoning.
Right.
So it's like switching that mindset to see like, all right, you still have those attributes. It's use it for
in a positive function.
A positive function. Thank you, Brad. That's why I got you here.
And the thing about it is you kind of look at the economics in the United States and you look at immigration and immigrants. So you look at other countries around the world that pass this down, right? Mm-hmm. So India, the Filipinos, the Koreans, all that stuff, that have strong families, the kids take care of the parents when they get older.
Yep.
Those kids come to the United States and they start working and they have a work ethic.
Yes.
So if you look at economics in the United States, you look at the white man, the white Caucasian, he's down towards the bottom of average yearly income.
Wow.
It's just a fact.
Wow. Those are good. All right.
Look them up. Okay. I mean, I think number one is like Indian. Well, I don't know, Filipino or Vietnam, it's Eastern Asian, the Chinese that come over, they have hard work ethics and they bring that over here and they just outwork everybody else.
Wow.
Because over generations, we've gotten lazy.
Wow.
And we have.
Wow. I think American society, period.
Yeah, American society, period.
That's an interesting fact. Now I know some people will probably look that up.
Look it up.
Man, that's interesting because a lot of numbers
per capita. Yeah.
Okay, because I know like some numbers and some stereotypes and stigmas can be deceiving in a sense.
Yeah.
Once you really like look at the overall numbers, like you said, per capita. Yeah. I want to make sure that your parking is cool too, man, because I want to kind of swing into you as your fatherhood and even though you answered so much, right. But I wanted to get it just a little more personal because you said you have two sons and now you have grandsons. So how old are your grandsons? And
he'll be 10 and my oldest will be 10 and
see, I'm old
4.
now. See, I'm old.
4 or 5. I can't remember if he's 4 or 5.
I'm getting old.
But it's the older grandson. He is like there. He's right there to help. Smart, just good kid. Younger grandson, he's like smoke, man. He's gone. You say the word work, and he's like, I'm deuces, I'm out. But he's sharp-witted, right? Just remember stuff. Mm-hmm. So I can't complain. They're great.
I can see that.
I can't complain. My son, he's a hard worker. He's in a union too. I mean, he works on a union job.
So that's because of the traditions of being passed. You know what?
Not really. I mean, he just got an opportunity to, basically we had a friend of the family that actually came to my other son and said, "Hey, do you want a job?" My other son's like, "Nope, that's hard work, man." So my son went to work for a heavy highway company here in town. Okay. And he worked there for quite a while, got his, he's a CDL, so he could drive big trucks. Right. Got his, he's a certified crane operator. Nice. So he's a certified crane operator through the union. Nice. And he came to work for a company I was working at. And he's been there ever since, and he runs a crane for him. And that's beautiful. He stays busy every day. And man. Yeah. So he's doing very well. Yeah. So he's doing well. And, I'm telling kids right now today, if you're listening to this and you're not sure about college, don't go waste your money. Right. I got friends that are union HVAC guys that literally can't find people to come work for them. Wow. And I think he told me he's paying, it costs him about $65 an hour on the check. Wow. Per guy, between benefits, hourly wages, all that kind of stuff. And he can't find guys to come to work. Wow. So it's not hard work. It's consistent. It's consistent every day, and you're going to get a check every day. Get your ducks lined up in a row, and you heard the man. And there's going to be a major shortage of tradespeople in this country, and it's going to be a big impact. Just plumbers, and I work in construction. I'm in the telecom business, and we can't hardly find guys to work. So. Wow. So anyway, man. So I'm sure you want to talk about my other son. Yes, I do. So I do, man. I want to talk about Ben because you, of course, we've been knowing each other 15 years. So right. I wanted you to touch on that. 6.5 years ago, Ben, my younger son, took his own life on November 2nd, 2016. I remember where I was at when I heard. I was down in Florida and I had to make my way home. But if you knew my son, you don't understand it because it's one of those things that you just can't comprehend.
Yeah.
My son was, 6'1", 200 pounds, solid muscle, blonde hair.
Great looking guy.
Deadlifted almost 600 pounds, went to the gym every day, worked at the gym. Everybody says, well, he wasn't on drugs. He was such a mama's boy, that my wife took care of his bank account. Yes. So she knew when he got paid,
yep.
He paid his rent and he did this and he did that. And, it was a shock to everybody. After the fact, we found out that he had problems with depression that nobody told us about.
Wow.
We actually met guys and friends and, everybody came to the house. I remember that the day after it happened, I came home because I was out of town.
Right.
I got home. They had a candlelight vigil at his place where he worked. He worked at a gym. A couple hundred people showed up to support us and support each other because they loved him.
Of course.
We went to have his funeral at a funeral home, and his friends are like, I
remember.
You can't have it at a funeral home.
Nah.
And I think we ended up counting maybe 12 to 1,500 people showed up.
For sure.
I don't know. My sister stepped in and helped with that. That was amazing of her. I just remember standing by his casket for, 5 hours that night, just talking to people and, being with him and everybody that came through the line. I don't remember half the people that came there and, who knows? It was, all blur.
Right. For sure.
But as a parent, I remembered for weeks that I was happy for about 5 seconds a day.
Man.
And when I woke up in the morning, I was happy for about 5 seconds.
Man.
And then I realized that my son is gone. He's not coming back, and I'm never going to talk to him again.
Jesus.
And then that's when, everybody said, time heals wounds, and which they do.
Okay.
You never get over it.
Okay.
But I remember for, a month, it was like, man, today's a horrible day. It can't get any worse than today.
Man.
And the next day it was worse.
Man.
And the next day it was worse.
Man.
And the next day it was worse. And then you finally hit a bottom. I never just stayed in bed. I never did anything like that. Thank goodness he had a lot of really close friends that would come around, talk. They included myself and his, my wife in their lives for quite a while. They still do.
Yes.
So that helped get past it. But probably one of the things that helped me the most was I had a friend. I went to high school with him. Went to high school, middle school. We went to college together. He went one direction, I went another. Just it is life.
That's how it happens. That's all.
Yeah, it's just life. And he sends me a message on Facebook, and he's with this big long message, and at that point in time, you're looking for anything.
For sure.
I mean, you're looking for, especially being, of faith. My son took his own life, so we talk to preachers and everybody, and it's like really the only sin there is not accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior.
Right.
So taking your life, Samson took his life.
Right.
So it is in the Bible.
Right.
It is not a mortal sin.
Okay.
So I had this friend contact me, and I remember I went and met him real early in the morning at a donut place in Grove City. And I mean, literally every day I would cry for 5 hours a day. You just can't stop.
Man, I couldn't imagine.
It's just, you can't control it. It is what it is. I learned that, being a man, if you cry or have emotion, that does not make you any less of a man, because I did not care. And I don't care to this day.
Right.
I just don't.
I said that on a couple of podcasts previous, that is part of, it's a component of manhood.
It is. Mm-hmm. And I don't care what people, whatever. I mean, you always think, man, be that big tough guy. No, that's not being a man. So we sat down and we were talking, having this discussion, and he was talking about faith and all this stuff. And he looks at me and he says, Brad, he said, you remember when we were at your house and we went swimming and, you know, we were at the pool. It was during the summertime. It was me and you and him and this, all these people. I said, yeah, man, I remember that.
Right.
He said, Brad, he said, that was 30 years ago.
Wow.
I said, man, I guess you're right. It was 30 years ago, wasn't it?
Wow.
He said, now remember this. He said, in 30 years, we may not be gone, but we're going to be getting close.
Right.
I said, you're right. Mm-hmm. So he said, that 30 years went by in a blink.
It does.
And he said, just remember this. There's a beach and you have a bird comes in and he takes one pebble of sand off that beach and he flies away. And he drops that pebble of sand. He comes back and gets another one. And he does that every day, all day, 24 hours a day. For that bird to remove that beach, that's eternity.
Man.
That's how long you're going to get to spend with your son.
Exactly. That's good.
When it's over.
That's good.
So this 35 years I'm in today
yes,
is irrelevant to the life, to the afterlife I have. And I don't know, I'm sure I've had some conversation with you, but there are people out there that refuse to believe that there is an afterlife. I have read as many books as you can read.
For sure.
On this subject.
For sure.
And I have examples. I know for a fact that probably 2 or 3 days after he died, I actually, no, it was about 2 weeks because it was after his funeral. I had a dream. I don't even know why I called it a dream or a vision, but I was asleep. So I'll call it a dream. And it was me and him standing by his casket. And he's looking at me and he's laughing because he always had this goofy smile on his face. He's laughing.
Yeah, he's a great looking kid.
I said, Ben, why are we here? And he looked right at me and he says, you know why we're here. And he just kind of smiled and he walked away. But the thing I remember, and I always draw back to this because I remember it so distinctly, that I had a feeling of joy and love and enlightenment in my soul that I never felt up to that point, and I've never felt now.
Man.
So the only thing that I believe is that he was showing me that the joy that he was in it now where he's at.
Right.
So I always go back to that.
Man.
So
that's heavy.
As we fast forward, you know, this was very impactful on my older son.
And that's what I was about to. I was about to ask you that question. Like, as a father, being the cornerstone, you know, because your grandfather obviously is an elder, so he's, you know, it's just in order to pass that torch to your son, and now you being a cornerstone. How was it for you to be? I know you're about to get into it. The pillar for your family at that time, and allowing someone to come and nourish you as well. You know what I mean? I was looking for anybody to help me out. Right. Anybody. Right. I mean, I remember I had to fly back from Florida the night it happened, and they went and found a janitor or a baggage handler, I don't know what it was, in the airport in Jacksonville, Florida, that was a preacher. Man. And brought him up. Praise God. Just to talk. Praise God. Yeah. So it affected my son, my older son. I mean, it affected him. You know, and in fact, for maybe a week or a couple weeks after work, he'd get done with work, he'd go buy a 30-pack of beer, sit in his driveway, listen to the radio until he almost passed out, went in his house and passed out, got up and did it again.
And my son really didn't drink like that.
Yeah.
So cool. He was just trying to kill the pain.
Mm-hmm.
So, we tried to have a conversation with him, talk to him, and, it was always, hey, I'm okay. I'm fine. Just leave me alone. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
So he had an old truck that he used to drive to work because he didn't like to drive his good truck. And he was driving home and he just left my parents and said, Dad, I didn't even have the radio on. He said, I was driving home when the radio comes on.
Wow.
And he said, it just starts a song. He said, I don't even know what song it was, but he said, I started listening to the words, and the words were, don't worry about me. I'm doing okay. I'm going to be just fine. And he said, Dad, I just listened to those words. And he said, somebody was telling me something.
Right.
He said, because I went home. I didn't drink. I didn't need to.
Man.
I knew Ben was okay.
Man.
And I went about my life.
Man. It's amazing how God, through being in his present state, gave a sense of release.
Right.
And everybody had their own way, unique
Correct.
Story of how that transitioned.
Right. So let's fast forward a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I had a guy working for me,
mm-hmm.
a kid to work for me. He was one of Ben's good friends. He came to work for me. We're back down in Florida working, and
mm-hmm.
there was an accident because the kid's an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
A piece of string with tracer wire in it came out of a pipe, went above 60,000 volt power line, step charge, stopped his heart, killed him.
Jesus.
Thank goodness we were right by a fire station. A guy was on shift change, jumped out, gave him CPR. Literally by the time I walked down the street, ambulance was there, had him on EKG, all that stuff, checking his heart. Everything's okay now, blah, blah. Fast forward a couple weeks.
So he survived that?
Yeah, he survived.
Jesus.
So the kid calls me up and says, hey, can I come out and see you and your wife? I said, yeah, come on out. So he comes out. He had to have his heart monitor on for about a month just to make sure everything was okay. Comes out. So I want to tell you something. He said, I want to, and I'm not crazy. I said, okay,
mm-hmm.
tell me what it is. He said, I died. He said, when I got electrocuted, I died. I went through the white tunnel, the pearly, all that,
mm-hmm.
all that. He said, I went across, and he said, my dad was there.
Wow.
My dad met me.
Wow. And
he said, I gave him the biggest hug. He said, he'd been gone a couple of years. He said, I gave him the biggest hug, and he said, it felt so good.
Wow.
So if you actually read the statistics, about 65% of the time, if someone has a near-death experience,
mm-hmm.
they're met by someone that they love.
Wow.
Or was in their family that died previous to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, I'm hugging my dad, and I said, I look out of the corner of my eye,
mm-hmm.
and I said, I see somebody. And I look again. He said, it's Ben.
Wow.
He said, Ben runs up to me and he shakes because Ben has these big, long fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And he shakes that big hand, that big, long finger at me. And he says, you can't be here. You have to go home.
Wow.
He said, I woke up.
Wow. Wow, Brad.
So,
man,
he told me, he said, here's the odd thing about it is, he said, Ben was not dressed in regular clothes. He said he had like a Roman, like a gold breastplate on.
Okay.
And he had,
he said, sharing this story with me. Mm-hmm.
He said, I remember him having a sword on his right hip.
Mm-hmm.
And through this whole, what we've been through, I think 4 different or 5 different people has had visions, dreams, things of Ben. Yep. And nobody knows anybody else.
Right. I remember you sharing this with me.
And they all have the same vision.
Yeah.
So there was a book that was written one time. A guy, it was a pastor that was run over by a semi, and he was dead for 40 minutes. It happened outside of Houston. And he wrote a book called, I think, 40 Minutes in Heaven or something of that sort. And he's being walked through heaven, and the angel is talking to him, and he gets it's one little paragraph in the book.
Right.
And he comes to these people, these men, and the men are dressed like Roman soldiers.
Wow.
And he says, well, who are those?
Wow.
And the angel said, those are the ones that fight the demons.
Wow.
So that kind of stuck with me when the people started talking to him, having this vision of him. So one day I was having a discussion with Brody, my older son, and he goes, Dad, Ben had a purpose.
Yes.
So he said, how does a kid go from overweight, unathletic? He was fairly athletic when he was younger, but video games,
and that's,
you get kind of chubby. You don't grow, just it is what it is.
Yeah.
And sitting behind a computer. And I remember one day I finally just told him, I said, listen, you're 16, you got your license, job, sport, one of the two, pick one.
Right.
You play a sport, I'll pay you for your bills.
Let's go.
You get a job, guess what?
Right.
He's like, I'll play a sport.
Yes, sir.
So he says, well, I'm going to go play football. I said, have at her.
Yes, sir.
So first week, practice 5 a.m. conditioning, winter conditioning. I thought 5 a.m., that's going to last about 3 days, maybe 3 days. Well, guess what? He never stopped for 4 years.
Right.
Never missed a day at the gym.
Right.
Never. So, even I remember on Christmas, we couldn't open Christmas presents in the morning because Ben had to go to the gym and lift weights in a Santa hat so they could get some things for Instagram or Snapchat or whatever it was to make, on Christmas morning. Man, to tell everybody.
That's incredible, because when you're speaking on that right there, I'm reflecting back to how your grandfather instilled in you, that you instilled in your children, and that your children seen that through your grandfather, you, and the community that y'all guys built, to have that work ethic. Yeah. So it was the desire meeting the work ethic that sparked that. Yeah. And, I
never really thought about
a phenomenal
that,
man.
You're right.
Yeah. So real quick, because I think we're getting short on time.
Okay.
What would you say to parents, families, friends that may have experienced what you and your family experienced? What advice or any insight that you could share?
It does get better.
Outside of what you already been sharing. Thank you.
No, it does get better. It took me a while before I could talk about him without crying.
For sure.
But I can do it now because there's happy memories. Those are happy memories. And, have faith that when we go, when I am I do not fear death at this point in my life.
Praise God.
Not even a little bit.
Praise God.
I don't.
Praise God. Praise God. I'm right there with you, man.
You know what I mean?
I understand.
I fear death because I will miss out on my son growing up more, my grandkids. That's what I fear, but I don't fear afterlife.
Exactly.
I don't fear where we're going.
I understand.
Because I know who's going to be there.
Yes.
Number one.
Yes.
And it's going to be glorious.
Yes.
Because I miss him.
Praise God.
So it does get better. Have faith that you will get through it. And I kind of tell people, I've known some people that they're just friends of, I know more people that have committed suicide than died of cancer. Man. All men. Man. I have people in the communities that I hang out with, across the country that they've had, a child commit suicide.
And this is all races. This is all ages.
It does not matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter economically.
No, at all.
It doesn't matter.
At all.
I was doing some work in somewhere and literally it comes up and there's this prominent lawyer, out of Orlando or Miami or whatever it was, multi-millionaire, giant mansion, daughter committed suicide or son, whatever it was. And you look at people in rock bands or in Hollywood or whatever that is, everybody has an issue that you may not know of.
Right.
And I was with my son every day, and I did not know.
One other question, I think, and I'm gonna end it after this for the most part. Did you blame yourself at all?
No. Because I never did. He grew up with anything he wanted, not anything he wanted.
I know what you mean, but I think that's very important to be heard, because I know some people kind of like blame on what they could have done or what they should have done.
We do look back at that and say, you know what?
Sure.
Well, why didn't we do this, or why did we do this? And I catch myself and I catch my wife, and I say, no. We did everything. This was a decision he made.
Yes,
and we don't know why that decision was made. Mm-hmm. Everybody looks at, I'm listening to a book now. What is it? It's Where Everybody Goes to Heaven. Mm-hmm. So the resurrect, not the resurrect.
I'm familiar with the.
Right.
I'm familiar.
So
with
I told my wife, mm-hmm. I said, "What if God had a plan that He was going to go from this guy to this big guy, because you are on earth as you are in heaven,
right?" That's good.
So he had to become this person, mm-hmm. and God needed him for something else.
That's great.
And the only way he could get him was to do something. Mm-hmm. And we look at it and say, well, gosh, that's stupid of God to do that. But we don't know the plan.
Come on.
We don't know the plan.
That's a good word. That's a good word, Brad.
So I have to say, it's not my plan. And it was something he went through. And everybody says, well, that's a coward. That's a coward's way out. Mm-hmm. I say, no. Mm-hmm. You take it and you have the guts mm-hmm. to do that. Mm-hmm. 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 That takes, I don't even know what the word is.
Right. I understand where you're coming from.
You see what I'm saying?
I understand exactly where you're coming from.
But I don't know why. Mm-hmm. So whenever I try to blame myself for what I did or what I did this or did that, or no, I can't.
Right.
Because you'll drive yourself crazy.
Right.
And you'll say, well, it's my fault. It's not. It's a decision he made. I wasn't there.
Right.
I wish I would have been there. I wish I could have talked to him.
Right.
That night, I talked to him the day before, mm-hmm. But you're a 20-year-old kid. You're trying not to.
Right. Impose and all that.
You try not to impose on their lives and things like that. So,
thank you, man. Thank you for sharing everything. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your family's love. You embraced me from day one. Yeah. Always. That's why, we're sitting here today, man.
Right.
You've been through pretty much a lot of my journey in my life. And you always a shoulder that I can lean on and get non-biased perspectives. Completely, like you're an engineer.
Well,
so,
I'm educated as let's just say that.
But thank you. As always, I wish you and your family the best. Always, man.
I appreciate it. I'm glad. I appreciate you.
And now anybody that is, there's resources out there for you and your families to you got the suicide hotline, you got community resources. Yeah. Tap in, check on your family, check on your loved ones.
If even anybody listens to this and they have a question or they just want to talk to somebody that's been through it, because people would always come up to me and say, well, I don't know what to say. And I really just want to say, no, there is nothing you can say. Nothing fixes this.
Right.
But if someone's been through it, they've been in the same position I have. So we belong to a club that is an awful club to be in. Mm-hmm. I don't wish it for anyone.
Right.
But at least we know the pain that person has been through.
Yes, sir.
So if something has happened to somebody recently or within the last 6 months, a year, whatever that is, and you just want to talk to somebody, you can make a comment on the podcast or to Mike or whatever it is, and you can DM me or whatever that is, and I would be more than happy to talk with anybody.
Thank you.
Because it is the club's getting bigger, which is not good.
I know.
But we've been through things that other people have not.
Man.
Yeah.
That's powerful. Thank you, Brad.
No
Thank
problem.
you, man. Thanks for joining us at Let Me Talk to You, Son. Kudos to my brother, Brad, man. Come on, you gotta give me some love, man. Thank you, man. I love you, man. As always.